Simplified Representations, or Simplified Reps for short, are Creo Parametric's primary large assembly management tool. What this means is a lot of times in Creo, you're working on big assemblies with lots of components, and you can have very slow performance out of your computer. What a simplified rep does is it allows you to tailor how much information that you're bringing in from your different components so your computer will repaint, retrieve, and regenerate faster. And I want to mention that I'm doing this demonstration in Creo Parametric 3.0. Be aware that Simplified Reps changed in Creo Parametric 4.0, so I'll be doing another video for 4.0 and later, but this video pertains to Creo Parametric 3.0 and earlier. The way that you access your Simplified Reps is from the Manage Views icon, which you can find on the Model tab. It's also located in the View tab, but probably the easiest place to get to it is from the View Manager icon in the In Graphics toolbar. And then I'll click on the Simp Rep tab. Your models automatically come with a number of predefined representations. And when you open something up, by default, you're going to get the master rep. And the master rep contains all the information about your different components. It contains the edges, the surfaces, the interior volumes, and all the parametric information that defines the features in those components. Because it's all the information, it's the one that's going to have the biggest burden on your computer and on your performance. Besides the master rep, another rep that you have is the geometry rep. And the geometry rep contains the edges and the surfaces and the interior volume, but it doesn't have the parametric information associated with the different features. And one thing I recommend is that you can do a lot of your assembly work right from the geometry rep. Because you have the solids, you'll be able to assemble new components, you'll be able to create cross sections using them. You will be able to do your mass property. So just about all the different functions that you're used to performing in your assembly, you can do with the geometry rep. So you might want to open up that one by default, and I'll show you how to do that later on. There's also the graphics rep, and the graphics rep is the wireframe edges, but you'll notice you also see the surfaces. And between switching from master to geometry and graphics, you'll notice that the computer screen really didn't change at all. It looks exactly the same. So that's one of the advantages of using those simplified reps. There's another one that's called the lightweight graphics rep. And the lightweight graphics rep uses the 3D thumbnail that's stored in a model. And this particular assembly is kind of old. It has been saved in an updated version. And so if I go to lightweight graphics, sometimes what you'll see is that you'll just get the bounding boxes that represent the volume of different components in the model. And that's because these don't have those 3D thumbnails stored in them. So just be aware that you might encounter that. Let me change back to my geometry rep, and you'll notice that this assembly is so heavy it even takes a while switching between the different components. Let me close the dialog box over here. The number one biggest mistake that people make with simplified reps is they change between one rep and another rep. And if you don't use erase not displayed, then you're not going to see any performance improvement for your computer or for your Creo Parametric session. So for that reason, I highly recommend that you put the erase not displayed icon in your quick access toolbar, and that way you can get to it quickly and easily, and just get in the habit whenever you change between one rep and another rep, you hit the erase not displayed button. But for what I'm doing in this demonstration, I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, let's take a look at how you're going to see the best performance improvement in your models. And that's by creating your own custom representations based on the particular task that you're performing in your assembly. And so the way that you create a custom representation is by selecting different components and then applying actions to them. So for example, let's say that there are some components over here on the exterior that I don't need, and so I want to get them out of Creo Parametric. I can select them and then hold down the right mouse button and choose Representation and then exclude them. And so that way those components are no longer visible, and again you can continue doing that for any components that you don't want in your session. And again, I'll go to Representation and then Exclude. And what you'll notice is in the lower left-hand corner of the computer screen, it tells me that my OnDemand Simplified Rep is the geometry rep, and there's a plus sign in parentheses. So if I want to store this as a rep to use later on, the way that I do that is by going to the View Manager. And again, here I am on the Simplified Rep tab. Again, this computer, I'm really burdening the computer with all the information from this assembly. What you can do is you can right click and choose Save and then type in a name for the rep. So for example, maybe I'm going to call this the No Frame Rep and then click OK. And then you can continue doing the same thing for other different components. So for example, I can say, hey, you know what? This component over here, and I'm holding down the Control key, and this component over here, I don't even need the solids for those. So what I can do is I can apply the graphics rep to that particular component. And again, it looks the same, but it's going to be less information. And the rep has the plus sign next to it in parentheses, and you can right click and you can choose Save and then either click OK to update the rep with that information, or you could type in a new name. Now I'm going to show one of the other choices available for components, and to show that I'm going to do it in a subassembly. So here I have one of the wheels over here, and the wheels have patterns of fasteners, and maybe I don't really want to see the geometry from those fasteners, so I can select them, right mouse click and hold and choose Representation and then Symbolic. And what Symbolic does is it shows the component with a datum point symbol and shows the datum point tag. So again, that's another way of reducing the amount of information in your computer's RAM, because a datum point is going to be a lot less information, a lot less burden than having the actual geometry from those different fasteners. So again, one way of creating the representation is by applying actions to the components and then storing the rep in the model. Oops, actually, let me go and store that one because I want to show you something else. So again, I've modified the master rep. Let's go to the View Manager and I'll right click, let me right click on this and choose Save. And I'm going to call this No Fasteners. Now let's hop back over to the assembly and show you another choice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my model tree. Again, it's just a very heavy assembly here. All right, and let me select the next higher level, locate it in the model tree. There we go. I'm going to select that particular tire and the other ones. And so when I locate them, okay, so I've got those two tires over there. I can right mouse click and hold and choose Representation. And if I choose User Defined, there it allows me to select that simplified rep that I defined in the subassembly, and so you can use lower level simplified reps in the higher level assemblies. Okay, so again, you can apply actions to components and then store the simplified rep. The other way of creating simplified reps is by going to the View Manager, and we'll click on the New button. No, I'm not going to save that. And you can type in a name. I'm just going to hit the Enter key to take the default name. And here you get a dialog box that allows you to specify what you want for your different components. And so it essentially lists the sub-assemblies in here. And one thing that I like to do is I like to add a column so I can see the component names. If you have component names defined, you can do this. So you could go to columns and more. And then if you go to model params, type in the model name, or excuse me, PTC common name. And that way, if you actually had named the components, it would add a column for it. But these components aren't named, so I really don't need it. All right, first thing to mention is that you have a default rule that's applied to all the different components. And the default rule in this case is exclude. And you'll notice that the three subassemblies say that the actions that they have applied to them are exclude, derived. In other words, they're following whatever is coming over from the top level assembly. And you can click on the drop down list and change your default rule. For example, maybe I want everything to be in the graphics rep. And what it does is it shows in this window over here the different components. And then for applying actions, you can do it from this window. You can select the different components. I'll go and select, some of the exterior components like before. And after you select them, you can right click and then choose set representation to, and then you could choose, hey, maybe those I want to exclude so I don't see them, and the preview updates. And be aware that you can rearrange the size of this window to help you build the rep that you want to use. In addition to selecting the components out of the window over here, you can also just click on the drop down list and say, hey, you know what? This component over here, I want this one to be in the geometry rep, and this one over here I want to be in the master rep. And then you can expand and even apply different rules to the components in the subassembly. So for example, I could say, hey, let's exclude a couple of these over here. And for applying other different rules, you can select them and right click and then apply your action. And then when I'm happy, I'll click OK. And here is my new simplified rep, and it tells me in the lower left hand corner the name of the rep that I am using. And again, when you are creating the different reps, I recommend that whenever you switch between one rep and another rep, you click File, Erase, Not Displayed. Okay, let me talk about another big mistake that people make. I mentioned earlier that a lot of times when people open up an assembly, they just open up the master representation by default, and that's not a good habit. Let me close these different assemblies and then erase not displayed. Let me show you a better way of doing things. And so after this erases, I'm going to go to the open button, and then here I have the assembly. And if you go to this open drop-down list, you can choose open representation. And that'll bring up a dialog box that'll show the different representations in the model. So you could go right to opening up the geometry representation. Or you could click the define button and you could create a simplified rep right when you're opening up the component. And for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to do geometry rep and exclude one of the subassemblies, and then click OK. And in that way, I'm creating a simplified rep right when I am opening up my assembly. All right. So there I have the world car without one of the assemblies. One of the assemblies is excluded entirely. Okay, let's talk about a few other selection techniques. And for these selection techniques, let me change back to the geometry rep. All right, for selecting components, you can drag a box in order to pick the different parts that you want. And the way that you do that is by changing the selection filter in the lower right-hand corner from the default choice of Smart to Parts. And then you're going to drag a box, and just be aware that there's a difference between dragging left to right and right to left. If I drag left to right, it's going to end up selecting any components that cross over the box, that intersect with that box that I'm dragging. But if I drag from left to right, I'm only going to get components that fall completely within that box. The other way of selecting, instead of using a 2D window, when you have parts selected over here, this button in the lower right will allow you to do 3D box select. And with 3D box select, the first thing that you do is you pick a surface. Oops, I think I might have accidentally middle mouse clicked. Let me do 3D box select, and then you're going to click on some flat surface, and then you're going to drag left to right or right to left. And again, be aware that left to right will only select components that fall completely within the box that you're defining, and with right to left, it's anything that intersects the box. And so you'll get this preview on the computer screen that allows you to drag out the size of the box, and that way you can see the components that end up getting selected. And then I can right mouse click and hold and choose representation and exclude. And that way those components are no longer in my simplified rep. And again, I can go to the view manager and then save this rep under whatever name that I want to call it. Now, another way of applying actions to components is by writing different rules. So for example, let me go to the view manager, and I'm going to go to let's create a new simplified rep. And for my default rule, I'm going to choose geometry. But then, if I go to this model rules drop-down list, I can choose to edit rules. And first I'm going to click on the plus sign to create an action. I'll use the action of exclude, but you could use the drop-down list to choose one of the other different actions. And for the condition, I don't have any conditions defined, so I'll create a new condition. And I'll just call it no small for no small components. And then we get the rule editor, which is a lot like the search tool. And I'm going to look for solid models of a size, and I'll use the absolute, let's use actually the, absolute size is less than. And I'll use a value of, let's make it big, 10. And preview results. And it finds 812 different items in here. So now I can click OK and OK. And then you have to evaluate the rules. And so now I'll click OK. And that way my simplified rep is set up. And if I choose redefine in this dialog box, you can expand and you can see here we have a bunch of components that were excluded because of the rules that were defined. All right, the last thing that I want to mention, you might have noticed in the lower left-hand corner it says that I'm using OnDemand Simp Rep. Let's talk about what OnDemand means. In OnDemand mode, what Creo Parametric will do is automatically retrieve the master rep of different components if you need them. So for example, if I have something in the geometry rep or the graphics rep, it doesn't have any of the parametric information. So if I try to edit definition of different features, what it'll do is it'll automatically retrieve the master rep so that you have that parametric information in order to be modified. And if you want to see the on-demand settings, you can go to the File drop-down menu and then choose Options, and then click on Assembly. And underneath Component Retrieval Settings, there's an On-Demand Settings button. And in here, it shows me that my on-demand settings are set to Never Prompt. You could set it to ask you if you want to retrieve the master rep of a component as necessary, or you could disable your on-demand settings. And there are some different categories in here that you can choose. So for example, there's activation, toggles the retrieval of activated components in their master representation. You can also control factors like regeneration, selection, editing, and a big one that I like, cleanup. With on-demand cleanup, after you make your changes, you can have Creo Parametric restore the previous representation and then erase those files out of RAM so that your computer maintains its faster performance. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more information, please visit www.creowindchill.com. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the Creo Parametric channel so you can be informed when new videos are added. Thank you very much.